Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to EarGround, yet another special edition of EarGround, where tonight I'll be speaking about hip hop from the foundation, from the roots of hip hop in Africa, not only in Zimbabwe but in Africa. I'll be speaking to Dumi RIGHT, who is the other half of the Zimbabwe Legit. And for those that are not in the know, the Zimbabwe Legit is one of the pioneering hip-hop outfits from Africa, and they were actually the first rap group that truly managed to reach an international audience, and proudly from Zimbabwe. I'll be crossing over to Dumi in the States, and we're going to speak to him about the roots as well as what he's up to, his music, his projects, and we bring the context back home to Zimbabwe, where we're going to talk about the Zimbabwe hip hop scene. And thank you so much, Norman Extra Large. I see you there for joining in. Lloyd Bonde, I see you also for joining in. Peace, Dumi, thank you so much. I'll be crossing over to you in the next 1 minute. In the meantime, I'll let this song play for a 10-second or 15-second. Buya uzobona ingithi hozala buya uzofunda but wena uyala sagaliyacha zibona phela ufuna ukuthula ngoma umnandi angithi uyavuma batshelane sengichelile chaya ingoma sengiqedile I'm done in my native language so yeah, I'm crossing over now to Dumi. Hi, Dumi.
Hello.
Greetings.
Hey, what's going on?
I'm good.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay?
I can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me so well.
Yeah, no, I can hear you really well. I just wanted to make sure the audio, the technical sounds good.
Cool.
So people can hear what we've got to say. We got some important things to talk about.
Definitely. And thank you so much, for the humble gesture to just take time to be part of this conversation. And it really means a lot, not only to me, but also to the hip-hop community and the artistic community in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, man, and before we even start, let me just say, man, big up, like real big up to you, because the work you're doing, like, is interesting, entertaining, informative, but it's also so crucial, you know what I mean, to let people know about artists, music, all over the continent and the world that they may not otherwise find out about. And from Zimbabwe, you know what I mean? You're representing the ZW to the fullest,
Thank you so much.
To paraphrase Biggie Smalls. So maximum respect for that.
Thank you so much. It's quite humbling to hear that from you, and I have so much huge respect for what you have done and what you've been doing and what you continue doing for the Zimbabwe music scene. Well, let's start from the foundation. How good is your show now? How good is Ndebele?
Man, it's broken.
It's broken.
It's broken. It's funny. We lived in Harare for a little while, and then we lived during boarding school in Bulawayo for a while, and then I've been in the U.S. for a while, for even longer than that. So yeah, it's definitely broken. But
cool.
It was funny though. You were playing. Doing damage. I might do some serious damage if I try.
That's a dope track. I remember when I, highlighted to people that, check out this track. People were like, no, this can't be. This is Zimbabwean. This is dope. And then I had memories of my childhood when I watched that playing on one music show on ZBC. And it was unbelievable. Even if I'm to watch it now, this is still a milestone. It's still ahead of the time. You guys were pioneers of the hip-hop movement in Africa. Take us through the journey. How did it start? And just from the beginning.
Yeah, man. So since you know what I mean, this is the EarGround, right? And we're digging a little deep. You know what I mean? I'm gonna give. I usually give people the abridged version, but here live and uncut, y'all are gonna hear like the full-blown audio biography, right? So people always in the biography like, yeah, where are you guys from? Where are you from? Where are you born? Where did you grow up? So I was actually born in the U.S., but my family's from
Mm-hmm.
Zimbabwe. My mother's side, South Africa. But I left the U.S. when we were like real little. I was like 4, and we went to
Yeah.
Zambia for a little while before independence, and then to Zimbabwe. So I was there, through independence, all the way from what we call on this side elementary
Mm-hmm.
school, junior school, through high school, and then came back to the U.S. After that. But I go back that far because that's kind of the essence of what raised me,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's kind of my musical foundation. So before we'd even discovered rap, there was always music around the house. People were always playing records. We had stacks and stacks of vinyl at the
Mm-hmm.
house. And I was just thinking through my mind when we were going to do this, like some of the songs and artists we used to listen to, but it's people like Miriam Makeba, Hugh Masekela, Ntombi's Manje
Mm-hmm.
Manje, Mafatini,
Yes.
so many groups,
Uh-huh.
and artists, Ladysmith, Black
Yeah.
Mambazo. And we just play the records and listen to them and, listen to the songs. And then even stuff not from that region,
Mm-hmm.
like Manu Dibango. And I remember Fela would always be playing on the radio. She go
Yeah.
say, I
Yeah.
be lady.
Yes.
And so hearing like kind of this broad
Uh-huh.
range, and then we had some James Brown
Uh-huh.
records in the collection, and so it was really cool, to always be musical, and I think as Africans, we are really into
Uh-huh.
music, and that's kind of a important part of what we do when there's parties or celebrations and people are dancing and listening to music. And then I remember my oldest brother, he's late now, rest in peace.
I'm
He
so
went by
sorry,
Fu
man.
Manchu, but he's really the one
Uh-huh.
that started all of this because he was a DJ.
Yeah.
And so as a DJ, him and his crew would get all the latest records to throw parties. And he was really like, I say he was the cool Herc or
Yeah.
Grandmaster
Yeah.
Flash of
Mm-hmm.
Zimbabwe, and probably, unheard of or unheralded to this
Yeah.
day. But he'd bring a lot of records home. And so he'd bring like Run DMC or
Mm-hmm.
Mantronics
Mm-hmm.
or Loose Ends or
Yes.
Imagination, a bunch of different
Mm-hmm.
artists, and expose us to a lot of
Yeah.
music that we wouldn't have otherwise
Mm-hmm.
heard. And then we started hearing like early rap records. Like I remember the first time I heard the Sugar Hill Gang, and it sounded real different to everything else that we had heard. And then Grandmaster Flash and Curtis
Yeah.
Blow, and we'd have those records playing. And so it was kind of like, oh yeah, this is really cool. You know what I mean? And I love the stuff that we grew up listening
Yeah.
to, and our parents' music. But this one felt special, like because it was
Mm-hmm.
mine. Like it was people closer, not my
Yeah.
age, but
Yeah.
closer, and they're talking about stuff that was cooler to me and more relatable.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of brought me into, the whole
Mm-hmm.
interest in hip hop, just as an observer and a listener at that point.
Wow. And looking at that, now we had uh, this sort of experience and exposure to music from the States and music from motherland, from Africa. And this informed your music, this informed your decision and your lyricism somehow, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it was interesting. I started off, and I was talking to some people from Senegal that also MCs,
Yeah.
from the group Ouagabla, that's also like pioneering Senegalese
Mm-hmm.
MCs, and talking to some other folks. And a lot of us on the continent started out as b-boys,
Yeah.
and
True.
breakdancing.
True.
Like I remember we'd be out in First Street, man,
Mm-hmm.
like literally Harare First Street, having breakdance battles with the crew
Wow.
from Mount Pleasant,
Cool.
the
I
crews,
didn't know that there was
from
breakdance
where
back
we were
then.
at. There was B like there was a shop called Josh and Kathy. So this is a real like Zimbabwe hip hop history.
Wow.
And Josh Makawa, who used to play
I
on the
know
radio,
Josh
had a
Makawa,
record
yes.
store.
He was already
Yes.
DJ.
And so in front of his yes, and so in front of his record store was some real smooth like a floor. So it's really good for breakdancing. So before security came and chased us
Yeah.
away, we'd go there and the two crews would assemble. We'd emulate what we saw in the movies. Our
Nice.
crew standing here, their crew standing there. Sometimes we ain't even have
Mm,
music,
mm.
B. Like it was real when we just be going, toe to toe. Crowds would amass, and
Yeah,
watch.
yeah.
And then after like 40 minutes, security would come and say, hey,
Get away.
Mfana, leave up on chase us away, right? No, but so a lot of
Yeah.
that, like, and I tell the story on a Facebook post, like when we first saw Beat
Mm.
Street and breakdance in the movie
Yeah.
theaters, Rainbow
Yes.
Cinemas, Kinney,
Yeah.
400,
Yeah.
whatever, right
Mm.
downtown. And, we seeing these guys breakdance and they're wearing all the fly Puma
Yes.
and Adidas tracksuits, and it's kind of like a hip
Uh-huh.
hop dream for us because it's like a who's cast from Cool Mo D to
Uh-huh.
Dougie
Uh-huh.
Fresh to Soul Sonic Force and everybody in there, and Cool Herc obviously,
Yes.
and then the breakdancers,
Uh-huh.
Rocksteady
Uh-huh.
Crew, and so we try to emulate and learn. But before we had the video cassette,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
or the DVR, or YouTube, the way to learn is to watch the movie. So we
Yeah.
watched Beat Street in the theaters maybe
Eight
8 different
times.
times, like trying to learn the movie, go home and practice. And so we went down in front after the movie ended and started breakdancing, and he had a circle and the crowd is loving it. And of course, the management came out and was like, "Hey, Pana, same
Get
story, right?
away.
Eva, get out, get out, get out, what's that, whatever." And but then they realized, like after like the second
Yeah.
time, the crowd was like clapping and
They're like,
cheering.
oh,
So then they actually asked us,
yeah.
they're like, "Can you guys come and do that every movie? And we'll give you guys free
Oh,
tickets
for
and
real.
some ice cream and whatever and stuff." So that was like a cool hip hop moment.
Awesome.
But that was like some of the early formulative
Mhm.
moments. And another funny story, and I'll early
Yeah.
80s, we were
Mhm.
doing electric boogaloo and popping and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And he encouraged me to enter this dance contest. So everybody else was grown, grown or like high school at the
Mhm.
youngest. I was
Was
still in
this still in Harare
grade
or is
six.
now in the States?
This is still in Harare, still in
Okay.
Harare in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
I'm in Hatfield Junior School. Shout out. That's where I was at.
Ah, okay.
Grade
Through
six,
junior. Nice.
and I
Yeah.
entered the dance contest, right? Doing my electric boogaloo. I think I danced to Michael Jackson, "Want to Be Starting Something" or something like that,
Mhm.
and I didn't win, but I came second. But they put my picture in the Herald, so I mean that was big,
Ah,
like grade
dope,
six
man.
in the Herald, and
In
then
the
of course
Herald.
um,
Yeah.
the guy who won was like, "Oh, Fana, how could you get in the
How could
newspaper?
you
I'm the
get in
one
the
that
newspaper?
won."
I'm not
you
there.
know. But and then so I got invited to Sounds on Saturday, which was the music
Sounds on
show
Saturday, yeah.
on
It was the
ZBC.
coolest show. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
said, "Can you come dance on Sounds on Saturday?" So I left school one
Ah.
day because they filmed in the afternoon, and I danced on
Uh-huh.
Sounds on
And who was
Saturday.
the host then?
Uh
Peter Jones?
it was not Peter Johns, but Peter Johns had a radio show that was pretty
Okay.
influential.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember it was like this huge thing because everyone at school was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we
Yeah.
saw you on TV," and
On
little
TV,
did I
yeah.
know, right? Years later, we'd still be hip hopping it up,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
different ways. I'm not quite as fleet with my feet these days. I know you
Uh-huh.
have a
Uh-huh.
dance school and dance contest.
Yes,
I'm
but
not your
apparently
guy for that.
I never danced at all. I never danced,
Oh,
and it's
really?
quite. I've never danced at all. But I mean, for the past 13 years, I've been promoting dance in Zim, and
Yeah, the way you
that's
promote it, I thought you were like the aficionado, like
no, no. It was basically
Gene
from watching
Kelly of Zimbabwe
TV,
dance.
not at
Okay.
all. Like you were inspired by B Street, and I was inspired by You Got Saved like years later, and I watched the
Oh,
film and the
okay.
movie house like 10 times. And after watching that film, I said I'm gonna start a dance competition, and that's how everything started panning out, and
And shout out
that's
to
what
you
really got.
again, man. Shout out to you again because I just saw that a female dancer won
Mhm,
the
mhm.
Zimbabwe qualifier and will be going to compete internationally. That's huge.
True,
Like
true.
I could have never thought when we were on First Street that anybody would ever pay for somebody to actually go dance when they're just like,
Go and
"I'm in my," that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Yeah, I think hip hop for me, hip hop took me on my first flight. I got on my
Okay.
first ever flight because of hip hop, and
Oh, like
I
literally,
think
you're saying. Okay.
literally, I'd never been on a plane before. I didn't have a passport
Wow.
before, but I got my first passport simply because of hip hop. And I think the biggest opportunities that I've had over the years are mainly because of hip hop. And hip hop constitutes, I think, 90% of what I've done and my major accomplishments. Yeah, but back to your story. Now we have moved to the States. You're coming from Africa with all this African background, culture, and you're getting into you start recording music.
Yeah, and I'm gonna rewind like a little bit, right? Because
Okay,
the
cool.
interesting twist, like I always say to people, like if I was to write a script and bring it to Hollywood, they'd be like, "Man,
Yeah.
that's too unbelievable. Like that
Yeah,
can't
wanna hear
happen.
that.
Why don't we make it more realistic?" But
Mhm.
we actually wrote an article about hip hop in Zimbabwe for the Source magazine. And at the time,
Wow.
91, 92, Source magazine was like the big
It
hip hop
was,
publication.
yeah,
There was
yeah.
others, but and we had
I
gotten like
mean,
slowly but surely a
yeah.
couple copies, but being able to say I'm writing about where I'm from, you know what I mean, the place of
Wow.
my origin and how hip hop is for one of
Uh-huh.
these publications to this day. I mean, and it wasn't like, like a column, it was like a 2-page spread or
Wow.
whatever,
On Zimbabwe.
uh, on hip hop in Zimbabwe and our experience, with trying to record, how we were trying to make it, talking
Mhm,
to record executives at that time, and they were kind of like,
mhm.
"Yeah, we don't really
Yeah.
understand. You should do more traditional music. You're just doing Western culture. This hip hop, wasn't really understood, and so we didn't
Yeah.
make much headway. But what was
Uh-huh.
great about that is we linked up through Red Alert Productions. Cool DJ Red Alert, who's a legendary
Mhm,
figure in hip hop,
mhm,
had a production
mhm.
company on 29th Street in New York. We ended
Yeah.
up linking up with a gentleman, Funk and Klein, that worked there, and he
Mhm,
was working on putting together a record label. And so he was like, "Yeah, when you get to the U.S., let's talk and see what's possible." When we did come to the U.S., we had on African dashikis and bees. We were
mhm.
walking through New York like, I
Yeah.
hope nobody jacks us. We definitely look like out of towners. We are doing a low budget version of Coming to America, Prince Akeem and Semi, except it was Akim and Dumi Right walking down
Yeah.
the New York mean streets of New York.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, in talking to them, we went to Mercury Records. We met this group.
Mhm,
He's like, "There's this up and coming group called the Black Sheep. I want to introduce you to them. They'd be really good to work with." DJ Shadow, who's now like a
mhm.
legendary producer and DJ, had a
Yeah.
production on our first record. So we ended up like
Wow.
signing with them and recording. Being Billboard magazine came to our to our album
Wow.
release party, and so we were working with them. We went to with Organized Confusion to Japan
Yeah.
as our
Wow.
first like
Dope, man.
international tour. And so I always tell Pharaoh Monch when I see him, I'm gonna check him out this Thursday.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
performing. I'm like, yo, that was like our first like education into hip hop touring and
Wow.
performance,
Mhm,
watching like the masters, like Pharaoh
mhm,
Monch and
mhm,
Prince Poe, go to work and control a crowd.
mhm,
And so, but one of the main things we were doing with all of that, one is we brought a very unique perspective and we're really
mhm,
clear about what we wanted to do. Because at that
mhm.
point, it was the hype talking, about, back to Africa and,
Yeah. Yeah.
respect your roots and, we're kings and queens and not just slaves. So it was a
Mhm,
big conscious movement, obviously, X Clan and groups like
mhm.
that. And so we were like, yeah, we're from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Zulu
Yeah. Yeah.
Nation, as somebody
Zulu
said.
Nation. Yeah. Yeah.
Zulu Nation, it's,
Mhm, mhm.
the Ndebele Nation, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
The
Africa Bambata identifies with this, and then now you guys are
yeah,
coming from there. Yeah.
yeah. And so I mean, it was cool, and a lot of the artists and people we met were, oh yeah, y'all are from Africa, and that was the thing too. When we got here, they were like, they wanted to see what we could do. It's nice to have that kind of kitsch of, oh, these are some MCs from Africa, but you have to be able to make music that is appealing, right, and that resonates with people. So we
Mhm,
had to go in the studio, do demos, record stuff,
mhm,
re-record, try different stuff with different producers. We had some homespun demos, but our
mhm,
main thing was, we've got a unique perspective that's relevant because, as Malcolm
mhm,
X articulately said, the African problem is the African American problem. It's one and the
mhm,
same. The struggles of people worldwide is a universal thing, and people can relate. So when you talk about people that are descendants of people that were brought over from Africa as slaves,
as
and then you
slaves.
talk
Yeah.
about what we went through with colonization in Africa, there's a lot of similarities and there's actually more common ground than differences. And so we're also like looking at the unity perspective of
Mhm,
people in the diaspora and people that are, African Americans in America. So we thought there was a lot that we had to say that was relevant, and the people we were working with thought so too. And that's kind of been the focus of what we've been doing, since then. Like,
mhm,
is
mhm,
making
mhm.
music that speaks to our experience.
Yeah.
It would be
Yeah.
great for me to rap about a Bentley. I don't have one.
Yeah.
It would be great
Mhm,
to rap about the big spinning rims on my car. I don't
mhm,
have them. And it's more true to me and true to who I am to rap about the things that I've done, that I've seen and experienced, and that I can relate to. And there's other people like me that I'll run into or that will hear the music and be like, oh yeah, I hear what he's saying. I can see that. I know what he means. Or else might not know the experience, but learn by listening.
Learn from it. Yeah. And but you guys were very young then. How old were you guys when you did your first record?
Did my first record, I was like 19 when we 18, 19, we started recording and
Yeah.
putting it together, and then like 20 by the time it was released.
And you and your brother, you recorded this record in Zimbabwe, your first record in Zimbabwe, right?
Nah, so the first record that came out, we recorded in a famous studio called Calliope in New
Oh,
York
okay.
City, which is
Oh,
also where
okay.
like the Jungle Brothers and De La
Yeah.
Soul and a bunch of other notable hip hop artists and a lot of the
Uh-huh.
native tongues recorded at. The stuff
Yeah.
we had recorded in Zimbabwe was like kind of rough demos, and
Okay.
then when we
Okay.
came to the U.S., we had to like polish it up and get with
Uh-huh.
some professional producers and rework stuff, and then submit it for consideration for them to be like, do we want to do something with this group? Is this something that we can make happen?
And when I listen to Doing Damage, the lyricism, the depth in terms of the lyrics there and the context which you played around with different Shona and Debele words to create something solid. Did you write the songs or somebody was writing the songs for you?
Nah, we since day one, man, we've written all of our stuff, all ourselves. No ghostwriters involved. It's
Wow.
always just been us, and even just from a conceptual standpoint, it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like people were like, "Oh, we want you to do this." What they did say was
Yes.
like emphasize what's
Mm-hmm.
unique to you, but
Uh-huh.
everything we wrote and did was totally internal. We came up with all of it ourselves,
Wow. Wow.
and then worked with production, producers on the beats and the tracks and stuff. But it's lyrically, 100% me or us, I should say.
Great. And your brother, is he still into music or is now into something else?
Nah, man, he's in it big time. He's in deeper than I am.
Oh,
Now
really? Nice.
and I say that because he does. He's still in the world of dance.
Uh-huh.
He still makes music and performs, and he does a lot of
Yeah.
stuff internationally as well. And he has like a collective that he works with musicians and
Uh-huh.
dancers, and they kind of do like
Yes.
a global type of performance where it incorporates elements from Asia, from different parts of the world, different instrumentation. And he's actually been invited to like do a residency and perform in Japan through the friendship, Japan U.S. Friendship Commission, and a whole bunch of other stuff. He goes to festivals internationally. So yeah, we're both still like heavily and have been involved. We've really never taken a step. You know what I mean? We're juggling priorities and different stuff,
Yeah.
but we've definitely still been at it. Perseverance and persistence.
Great, great. And talking about your journey, there's been a lot of achievements. You managed to perform and they shared the stage with so many luminaries, like in the hip hop scene, the likes of MC Light. You performed with the Roots. You performed with the great KRS-One. You performed with Mos Def, and you have toured the US, the States, France, Japan, and shared, the stage with some of these artists. Could you share just a glimpse into that kind of an experience? Because I think for a hip hop artist who's in Zimbabwe, uh, there's not been much in terms of an experience or an exposure to international performances. A lot of the artists that are coming through are coming from Jamaica or coming from within Africa or elsewhere, but they're not necessarily hip hop artists. And they, except for South African artists now that are bringing their own flavor of hip hop. But you shared the stage with these artists, and obviously there is something that you learned. And also, I want to know your experience and what you learned from such experiences.
Yeah, no. So a lot of it, I mean, like I said, it's been a blessing. Like have gone to Japan with Organized Confusion and watch them. And a lot of what I did, you observe, right? You see kind of how they interact with the crowd, how their lyricism. If you get the privilege of seeing the behind the scenes, like how do they gear up for a show? How do they get ready for a show? How do they, work the arc of the show from start to finish and get the crowd involved? I remember when we actually it was funny when you said Most Def, and I was like Most Def, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, like when we performed with him, it was like at a small unit New York City venue called Thought Forms Underground,
Uh-huh.
and it was like real dope hip hop spot, a regular recurring event. You know, we had a
Mm.
small opening slot and rocked the show, and then the band started playing. So they had like a
Mm.
live band playing and playing, and then the person who was playing the drums at that point was Most Def, and then he came up
Oh.
from the drums, picked up the mic, and just like without missing a beat, started rapping, and the place went wild because I don't even know how long he been on the drums. Like it was just wild seeing him and everything. And I remember it was still before, like now they got more regulations, but you could
Mhm.
smoke in bars and clubs. And he
Yeah.
said, all cigarettes out. Because as a lyricist, a vocalist, when there's mad smoke,
Mm.
especially in a
Yeah, and
small
then it
venue,
affects your
it's real
voice.
hard. Like,
Yeah.
so I remember like, man, yeah, he's just telling everybody put their cigarettes out. Like he's not playing. But as artists, you know what I mean? You have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was cool. Seeing him rocking the
Mhm.
stage with like the Jungle Brothers and YZ.
Yes.
We had a
Hmm.
collective called, or have a collective called the Great Minds, and that was
Hmm.
also beautiful too because we kind of energize each other and kind of see, because they're masters of performing like
Hmm.
internationally for years and years. So you kind of learn by seeing, learn by doing, and interacting. And
Hmm.
if they compliment you on something, it's like, oh wow, like these cats, they know the game, and if they think it's dope or they appreciate it, that gives you
Hmm.
that confidence to keep it going and even go further. And you kind of know that some of the things you're doing are working when you see it,
Yeah,
obviously from your peers, but
yeah.
from the audiences and the crowds too. So I
Hmm.
think a lot of times people think like, oh, it's just a small venue. It's like, 30 people here. Yeah, I'm gonna be kind of lazy with it, or I'm gonna complain that the place isn't packed. And it's like just
Yeah,
give it your
yeah.
all, regardless of the size of the
Even if there are two or
crowd.
three people, yeah.
Exactly, because one, it's practice, right? What you do in practice is what you do in the game. But
Yeah.
also, you never know who's in the crowd watching. A lot of
Hmm.
times people like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, I saw you rock at this thing. Can you come and do this other event? Or hey, I was looking
Hmm.
for somebody that can rock in a small venue. Like I did a
Yes.
show in a library. Who
Hmm.
would have thought, right? It's a library,
Uh-huh.
it's quiet, but we're in there turning up with some hip hop. But they
Hmm.
know that you can adapt your show, your performance, and what you do to different audiences, different venues, and then you're more versatile, right? If you're trying to hustle and do more stuff and be more active, the more
Hmm.
places you can get to, the better, right? So
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
it's real important. You know what I mean? Always be on your game. Always
yeah,
rock.
yeah,
Like KRS-One,
yeah.
watching him was like a game changer because he
Hmm.
control, like you talk about mic controller,
He
master of
controls the mic.
ceremonies, move the crowd. Like the crowd, you got, hundreds of people jumping up and down at his command, rocking. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's how it's done. All right. I need to get there. I need to get there.
Uh, uh. And for somebody who has never really traveled that much, their thought of hip hop in the States is basically what they see on TV. Is that the reality? I've traveled, I've been in the States a couple of times. I've seen a different reality from what I saw on TV before. But from your experience, you've been in Africa and now you're in the States. How is the reality? Is there a discrepancy between what we see on TV when it comes to hip hop to what really happens on the ground?
Yeah, nah, it's definitely there's like just a small sliver of what hip hop actually is that's represented in mass media, unfortunately. You know what I mean? I remember a time where I'd be listening to commercial radio and I'd hear
Yeah.
a Public Enemy song and then I'd hear like, whatever commercial R&B song, then I'd hear a Tribe Called Quest song and you'd hear like a variety, you'd hear Janet Jackson and you hear a variety of stuff, right? But now it's like the sliver of music that you hear is real narrow in terms
Mm-hmm.
of the subject matter and the
Mm-hmm.
style, which is unfortunate because I think we're selling ourselves or being sold short because people only, like you said, from the outside looking in, and even people that are here, that's all they really, they turn on the radio and that's what they hear. To them, that's what hip hop is, at least in 2020, 2019, 2020, hip hop is, oh, this is what it's talking about, this is how it sounds, and this is how to put it down. There's so much other stuff, and people are always like, oh yeah, you need to go research, you need to go look. Yeah, there's other real good music out there, which is true, but it's unfortunate that the mass media, which reaches the largest number of people, only presents that small segment of what hip hop is. And so to the uninformed, and not everybody has time to be going out there digging and research, because either they don't have time or they don't care to, right? They're just a casual music fan. And they're like, oh, what's going on in the world of hip hop? Let me tune to that station, and they hear what they hear. So, it's there's a lot of other stuff out there, a lot of diverse voices, a lot of diverse subject matter, but you only get, it's kind of like if you went to the movie theaters and they only ever showed like cowboy westerns or something. Or they only ever showed horror movies, and you'd be like, oh, every movie has to be about, Freddy Krueger or Jason, right? Like, it's funny like that. And so what I've tried to do is figure out, like, okay, well, how can we reach the like-minded people or people who would appreciate what we do? So how can I use like analytics on the streaming services, or use my networks to try to grow? And it's a learning process, something I'm still figuring out and investigating, to be like, okay, now that music is digital, is the primary way of consumption, it's not physical, where you can be like, I'm gonna target these stores, I'm gonna target these places. I mean, we have people in Japan picking up our records. I'll get in touch with labels, and they'll be like, oh yeah, Zimbabwe Legit, if you've got new stuff, we'd love to distribute it. Or, do you have vinyl? Vinyl's, getting more and more big up as of recent as well, and making a resurgence. And so people are like, hey, how can we get our hands on it? So trying to find those pockets and those niches of, not everything has to be mass consumption either. You know what I mean? Nothing.
I get you.
Everything doesn't have to be for the masses. You know what I mean? People think, oh, you've got to have a chorus that's like this, and you've got to sing about this, so you can reach.
And gotta sound like this. Yeah.
If you try to make a formula, the formula usually doesn't work. A lot of the best stuff happens organically by doing what you do and being true to who you are.
Great. I'm gonna touch a bit more in my closing question, especially on the work that you're doing, and also how hip hop artists can actually harness the power of the digital space. But back home, Zimbabwean hip hop, are you in touch with Zimbabwean hip hop? And what is your perception about the growth of hip hop from the time that you guys started music?
Yeah, I always keep tabs, man, and I'm gonna give a shout out and a plug to my homie Naboth Rizzler, because he's another advocate.
It's the A-list,
another advocate, for the scene. And it's always good too to see people that aren't trying to make moves just as an artist, right? There's other jobs, and like you said, you're not a dancer, but you can advocate and big up and spread the word and publicize and bring attention to dancers. And so he brings a lot of attention to artists and local artists. And so I definitely keep tabs on what's going on, and it's really, it's thrilling to see, you know what I mean? I'm nothing but happy to see the expansion and growth. Obviously with the rise of digital and self-publishing, independent avenues for artists, there's a lot of ways for people to get seen and heard, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of good work. And it's good to see too that there's a lot of, at least from what I can see and what I hear through the people that I hear, there's a lot of different voices and different styles. Some people incorporating traditional elements, some people doing straight up, whatever, trap, whatever. But it's good, like, have variety. It's good to have a buffet, right? Multiple dishes, and then people can choose to listen to and digest what resonates and appeals to them. So yeah, definitely keep tabs and keep checking. Always try to do stuff. And I'm actually also collaborating, with artists on a previous project. I did a song that's actually featured in a movie called Things I Never Said, featuring Omari Hardwick and Shanola Hampton.
Awesome.
So it was cool. And the song was called All Over the Map. And so I got MC Majozi from South Africa. I had Ziggy La from X Plasters from Tanzania, myself, and and the song was called All Over the Map. And it's like
Ah,
connecting the
nice.
dots
When
between
does the film
artists
drop
and MCs.
and the song?
So that film is out already, and
Uh-huh.
it's out like on like Netflix and
Yeah.
cable shows and everything and online.
Okay.
So that's out, and then I'm looking to move into that space a lot more as well.
Mhm.
It just popped back up because now that it's out on digital space, it was like, oh yeah, that song that you did is actually
Ah,
in that
nice.
flick. Um, but yeah, working with artists from in and around Zimbabwe. And I was telling you, I
Uh-huh.
think you got the exclusive sneak preview of a
Yes,
song
the
I did
collab
with
that you did with
Yosakusa.
yes.
So that's coming soon. And that's what I was speaking about, like the
Uh-huh.
traditional Mbube style of singing,
Uh-huh.
which I grew up listening to. And I'm like,
Mhm.
now what about if we were to make a collaboration with hip hop and traditional African a cappella singing, and
Mhm.
make, something new, a new
Mhm.
product, something different. And it was great because we were like coordinating across WhatsApp, and
Yeah.
they're like, okay, we're
Oh,
gonna send you a
nice.
sample, and they, and it's like, eight guys singing, and you get a WhatsApp, voice clip, and I'm like, oh man, wait till you guys go to the studio. So of course they went to
Yeah.
the studio,
Uh,
multi-track, and we did all of that. But trying to do things like that. I've also worked with some MCs from Zim
uh-huh.
and different parts of Africa on different
Uh-huh.
projects. Some stuff that's out. Mode 9, I gotta shout him out from Nigeria. He's one of the illest
Okay.
spitters. He's like African Black Thought. I
Oh,
don't know if
dope.
he calls himself, if he's been called that before, but he's definitely a heavy hitter and rhyme spitter. So me and him have
Uh-huh.
actually collaborated on something
Okay.
that's out called Go In, and something that's not even out yet. That's
Uh-huh.
up and coming. Some songs. So there's a lot of stuff out there.
Great, great. And you spoke about Imbube, you collaborating with such a very diverse outfit, they're not into hip hop. I still see, a very deliberate attempt from your end to always dig into your roots. Looking at the sound of hip hop in Zimbabwe now and the hip hop artists in Zimbabwe, what would you say to them with regard to the importance of them stepping into their roots and not departing from um, their traditional narrative, traditional sound, and traditional instruments, and anything that is within their vicinity?
Right. Now that's a great question. And I'm gonna say it like this because I know I've been on both sides of the coin. Like I told you, I went to Grammar. I don't know if they're still rocking in
Yeah,
Zimbabwe,
grammar.
but that was a
It's
big
it's a
record
it's a white
label.
elephant now.
I
It's
had
still
I
there, but
had
it's not functional.
right. I had the honor, if you will, privilege of getting a meeting. Right, so they were willing to listen and sit down and talk to me. But their whole thing was kind of that paternalistic, like, yeah, this is what you need to do, and this is why we can't work with you. And as a
Yes.
young upcoming artist,
Yeah.
I didn't really gain from that exchange to where like I had a roadmap of what I was doing, and I felt like you said some of it was a little bit of ahead of its time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where they wouldn't have been like, well, they should have pressed the first Zimbabwe Legit record in Zimbabwe
Uh-huh.
on Grammar. You know what I
True.
mean? It
True.
would have made
True.
sense. You'd have thought.
Yeah.
But so when I give thoughts and advice, my first thing I'll say is don't listen to my advice. You know what I mean? You're your own
Uh-huh.
person, so do
Do
what
your
feels
own
good for
thing.
you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as a suggestion, you know what I mean? Take it or leave it, like it or squeeze it. Like the what I'd suggest is like we have like rich traditions and we have
Uh-huh.
things that make us unique, right? And the whole
Yeah.
thing about the music business is how can you break out of the fold? There's thousands and thousands, especially now. You can just load up your
Uh-huh.
phone and
Yes.
publish yourself to YouTube or publish yourself to SoundCloud. So it's like, what are you doing that makes yourself different? And
Uh-huh.
being in Zimbabwe, these cats have like competitive advantage, right? They've got things that are different from everybody else. They might be similar to other Zimbabweans, but I'd argue that their experiences, even from going from Bulawayo to Harare to Gweru to wherever, is different, to somebody in Johannesburg, to somebody in Dakar, Senegal. And so the more you emphasize your uniqueness, the better it will be and easier it will be for you to break out. But also in thinking about that, think about, well, what is it that I'm doing or saying that other people can relate to, that maybe young people in a different African country or European country or Asian country or wherever. 'Cause that's why hip hop caught on, caught fire, and still, the biggest music in the world today is that people can relate to it. Like when I heard Grandmaster Flash growing up say, "Broken glass everywhere, people pissing in the garbage, pissing in the alley, just don't care, can't take the smell." I'm thinking about my experiences in the townships in Zimbabwe that kind of make me think like, oh man, so they have places like that, like they say, whatever, it's just like Compton. It's like, yo, Popoma's
Yeah.
just like the Bronx, like, really? Like, it's like we've got things in common, so
Yeah.
I would say take that and run with it, you know what I mean? Like if you do, do something that's different, do something that's unique. I think it's great if there is that, you know, overlap and intersection with traditional arts, because I think
Yeah.
we,
Yeah.
as a people, should preserve our culture,
Yeah.
ultimately. And so what I'd like to do is more stuff like that Mbube collaboration,
Yes.
with traditional dancers, and with there's actually a guy out here that studied under a Zimbabwean Mbira player that
Oh
plays
wow.
with my brother often and
Uh-huh.
stuff. And
What's his name?
he's like, oh, Zimbabwe, Kevin Nathaniel,
Oh, he's not
and he's
Zimbabwean. Okay.
oh no, yeah, but he studied under
Mbira.
some tutelage of some Mbiras, of some people from Zimbabwe
Okay.
and stuff.
Great.
So he's like teaching that tradition, you know what I mean, as a Black African American and stuff. So I think that cultural preservation is important. Um, I've
Uh-huh.
had the opportunity to do cultural exchanges. As a
Yes, I know
cultural
you've worked
ambassador.
with the JF Kennedy Center. Uh,
Yeah, and
yeah.
working through the next level program, and so like they
Yes, you're part
actually
of the
had
next
some
level.
artists. Yeah,
Yeah,
they had
with
some
Mark
artists come
Arts.
to Zimbabwe. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
you
collaborated with
know him?
them. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm a good friend with Mark Katz. I collaborated with him. The next level, we were the collaborating
okay.
partners together with Magamba when they came to Zimbabwe, and I went
Oh,
on to
okay,
do.
okay. I didn't realize
Yeah,
that. That's dope.
yeah, I went on to do a film with, and a guy was part of the Next Level project. He's in Oakland, California, and now
Oh, okay.
if you get a copy of Mark's new book, he actually cost me
Uh-huh.
the book, and it cost also a bit of an experience that we had during the tour. Yeah, I mean, I'm quite good friends with Mark. Yeah,
Okay, no, awesome. But yeah,
yeah,
so and the whole thing with that is exchanging cultures, like bringing my experience and your experience and using that to bring people together. Because ultimately, that's what this music is hopefully gonna do and supposed to do. Is bring us a little closer together, help me understand you a little better, help you understand me
yes,
a little better. And that it sounds utopian to be like, oh, music's gonna make us come together. But I mean,
yes,
honestly, like I was saying with Grandmaster Flash, the message, I felt like I didn't know the struggle, but I
yeah,
kind of understood better the challenges and could relate it to things that I had seen or heard or had witnessed. And so I think if you can do that with music, that's golden. Like that's what the objective is. And then the other stuff will come. You know what I mean? Somebody told me you chase money, it'll run away from you. But if you follow what you believe in, you know what I
that the
mean,
man is gonna
you'll
follow
win
you.
regardless. Yeah, you'll win
And
regardless.
talking about money, how easy is it or how difficult is it to really make the money in music, through music in the States?
Difficult.
And
No, finish the question, but yeah.
can one live just survive as an artist and do nothing else, just art in the States? If you could
I
answer
think
both questions.
I think it is. I mean, I think I'm gonna tell you my perspective because that's all I
Yeah.
know. And I think sometimes when we talk to somebody, they'll make a statement that they feel like it's true, and it's like, well, maybe he's a famous musician or artist, and he'd be like, "Yeah, leave everything that you're doing,
Yeah,
pursue
yeah,
your
yeah.
art. That's the only way you'll make it." And then you do that next week, and you're hungry and broke, and you're like, "Ah, that guy, he lied to
Yeah,
me.
like, you lied to
I
me.
had
Yeah.
this great job, and I left it." And it's funny because people always like, as a diss, will say to somebody, "Don't quit your day job," trying to mean like, oh, you're not good enough to make it.
Yeah,
But to me,
yeah.
that might actually be good advice. You know what I mean? If you've got a solid foundation, you might want to. There's nothing wrong with a good hustle. There's nothing wrong with gainful employment. What I will say is kind of think about what you're doing. And I think as artists, a lot of times we're super creative, super
Yeah.
like thoughtful about the art and less about business and planning. And I think it's important, especially nowadays, for artists to think more about, okay, what am I really doing? How did my last
Mm.
album do? Okay,
Yeah.
it didn't do so well. Why? What am I going to do different next time? Not, oh, I'm just going to drop another mixtape next week. And sometimes being spontaneous is cool, but I think from a longevity standpoint, thinking about like how is this going to work, or how is it not going to work? Okay, maybe I'm not going to make commercial sales, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to go and be like a teaching artist or a cultural
Mhm.
exchange artist, or
Mhm.
like tell people experiences or figure other things out, or marketing or business or whatever. So I
Mhm.
think it's difficult to just be a musician making records and trying to survive. I think if you want to make kind of the artists that kind of do a little bit more and
Yes.
are able to do it are ones who tour, because since
Mhm.
you're touring, people
Mhm.
are paying for a ticket and you've got an agreed amount of money that you're being paid, so you can kind of factor in, unlike a album release. It might sell this, it
Mhm.
might sell that. If you're doing a show, somebody says, I'm going to pay you this much to do a show. If you line up 10 shows, you can be like, okay, this is how much I'm going to make, this is how much it's going to cost to do it. So a lot of
Mhm.
people do it that way. And then I think
Mhm.
just finding alternate avenues, be it
Yeah,
music
of making money.
licensing,
Uh-huh.
um, merchandising, speaking engagements. If you're that type of person that's, like
Mhm.
somebody like me, like I can go into colleges and universities. I've been to several in the area,
Yeah. Just
and speaking about my experience, background, and knowledge of hip hop culture. They have hip hop classes at universities.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
consider
True.
myself like kind of a self-proclaimed dean of the school of MCing, because I've done
Oh,
a little while or
great.
whatever. I know some
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And so I'll speak at colleges and they'll pay you an honorarium to speak.
Yeah.
Stuff. Or you'll speak, to a class, pro bono, but as a way to get into a
Some,
situation,
yeah.
get invited back or do other endeavors and initiatives. So I think it's very difficult, like I said,
Uh-huh.
to summarize it, to make money as an artist. I think the more broader your set of skills and your
Mhm.
tool set, the
Yeah.
better you can make a career or
Mhm.
an endeavor from it. If you're just a rapper, just rapping,
Yeah.
you might blow up. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like they said,
Mhm.
Old Town Road was made for $200 in somebody's studio with a $50 purchased beat. You know what I mean? So hey, it could happen. We
Yeah,
could all hit
yeah.
the lottery. You know?
And I think what I find very interesting, I mean, from this conversation that I'm having with you, and also from listening to your music, it's the depth in terms of just the knowledge. You know, you're so profound about different topics and very conscious about your Africanness and not apologetic about it. Um, do you read often? How do you keep up with this kind of knowledge of what happened in the past, what's present, and what's happening in the future? You know, how important is it for an artist to read, and do you read a lot?
Yeah, I try to read a lot and stay current, but also, I mean, this is part of my growth, and I think as my formation as an artist, books and just study, if you will, knowledge
Mhm.
is key, right? Knowledge reigns supreme over nearly
Yeah, yeah,
everyone.
true, true.
Like to this day, and, glad we read it in high school. Chinua Achebe, Things Fall
Hmm.
Apart.
Things fall apart,
It's like
yeah, and
it's
things are still
so
falling apart.
still falling apart and so relevant. And then reading, other books like A Man of the People and other stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Reading
yeah,
autobiography of Malcolm X.
yeah,
Reading The
yeah.
Measure of a Man by Sidney Poitier, and then also,
Mhm,
fiction and nonfiction. I was a big science fiction fan, so
mhm, mhm,
my oldest brother turned me on to Asimov, and science fiction writers from back in the day that influenced a lot of what you see in movies
mhm,
and Avengers and
mhm.
Marvel movies and all that stuff, and Star Wars and all that are influenced by a lot
Yeah.
of those old science fiction books. Um, and then even African American artists and poets. So I think it's
Mhm,
good to get a broad exposure to thought in
mhm,
general, right? Like if you just hang out with the same people on your block and you're not
mhm,
exposed to what's going on elsewhere, I think it limits what you can talk about and limits that relatability. I mean, I've done shows where like I've had like literally, and she won't be mad at me saying this, a grandma come up to me and say, "That was great testimony." And I was like,
Ah.
"What?" And she was like, "That's great testimony." She's like, "I can tell that, what your words are
Yeah.
right." Or she said something of the sort. And I was like, wow, And it was like a talent show for like high school kids that I was a judge of
Yeah.
and did a performance. But it's that thing of being able to bridge the gap between, I've worked with kids in elementary school and teaching hip
Mhm.
hop classes and workshops. And I've worked
Mhm.
with, older folks and people across the spectrum. And I think that comes from kind of having that knowledge and
Mhm.
being able to speak to different stuff, having
Mhm.
like a broad-based background. So you're not limited, one, in your vocabulary, but also
Yeah.
kind of in
Yeah.
the subject matter. I mean, I even, we didn't even touch on it and we probably don't have time. We'll get it on the next one. But I entered a
Definitely, I
contest
think we could. Yeah. Uh-huh.
and won at South by Southwest this year. And it was pairing six MCs with six entrepreneurs talking about
Nice.
sustainable ventures
It was a
and
pitch.
how, yeah, so Pitch and Flow was the name of the contest. So it was a
Nice.
pitch contest, but instead of reading a PowerPoint deck, just
Yeah.
with a slideshow, it was
Yeah.
the MCs that had talked to the entrepreneurs about the mission and vision and
Wow.
articulating that through a
Mm.
song. And so I was rapping about a company. Actually, they probably need them in Zimbabwe. I'm still making that
Uh-huh.
pitch again.
Uh-huh.
They turn garbage into electricity in Addis
Wow.
Ababa, Ethiopia, and they actually are providing like 30% of the electricity for the city. So I was
Wow.
rapping, like trash piled up on every block. I wonder will it ever stop? Ticking time bomb, check the clock. Gotta think outside the box. Old way of thinking, gotta fix it. All this pollution, gotta fix it. Here's the impact in case you missed it. Let's get into a few specifics. Time's running out, gotta move with haste. 1,400 tons of waste processed every day to provide the power, measured in millions of kilowatt hours. All this trash piled up outside. Stop the emission of carbon dioxide. Next part I thought was super slick. Burn trash and use the ash to make bricks. This is on another level. Kilos of recycled metal. The bottom line, the nitty gritty, provide electricity for the city, prevent it from being contaminated. Got to be creative and innovative. Got to make sure that it's sustainable and we can prove this goes attainable.
Wow. Wow. Dope, man. Dope, man. You flow.
And that's just a taste.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I
Enough
did
respect.
another verse on that,
Yeah.
and then another
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
song, and we had visuals.
Mhm.
But as you can see, right, it's using
Yeah.
hip
Yeah.
hop as a vehicle and a tool to communicate a message. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
won the contest at South by Southwest, crowned
Uh-huh.
pitch and flow champ, right,
Wow.
2019, and
Uh-huh.
then was asked to come to a conference on waste to energy to
Uh-huh.
come and
Uh-huh.
speak. And so they have these, engineers and everybody talking about kilowatt hours and waste
Yes.
emissions. And then they're like, oh
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah, we have a special guest. And I came and I kicked that rhyme in
Uh-huh.
front of all
Uh-huh.
these people in suits. And I had
Uh-huh.
like 10 people be like, that was the best part of the conference. They're like, that's the
Wow.
messaging we need. So maybe I have a new career as
Wow,
a
this is quite
messaging
moving.
specialist.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really also kicked in some thoughts, just how you have played around, with words and expressing a very, important issue. Because I remember in 2012, so I was part of the Hip Hop and Civic Engagement Program by the U.S.
Mhm.
Department of State, and it took me to St. Louis, New York, New Orleans, LA, and Washington. And so we got into a juvenile detention center in St. Louis, and I saw how they were using poetry and hip hop to rehabilitate the youngsters, And then later on, I experienced one project. I think it was called Justice for what? I'm forgetting, but it's in LA, right, where they're using
Mhm.
also hip hop to, deal with community and social issues. So when I went back to Zimbabwe, I started a project. We're already running our Jibilika initiative, and then we just started an HIV initiative that was using hip hop to speak to young people. And that is the only time that I've won an award, won an award
Okay.
simply because of that program. We ran it for 6 consecutive years with consistent financial support. And I think if I'm to look back in terms of impact, that is like the biggest impact from the project that I've done, just using
Oh
hip hop
wow.
as a
That's
tool for social change, And picking from what you just mentioned now, I think the possibilities when it comes to hip hop, especially a culture that speaks to young people, despite any differences in race, culture, is enormous. And I think it's there's too much to exploit and really explore and be able to impact communities, but also create an economy out of it. So thank you so much for that inspiration.
Yeah, nah, no problem, man. It sounds like that project you did is meaningful. So at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like people have different motivations for
Uh-huh.
what they do, but when you're making social impact, community
Yeah.
impact, man, you know,
Uh-huh.
that's more important to me than any of this other stuff.
Uh-huh.
That's you're impacting somebody's life, changing it for the
Yeah. Yeah.
difference, you know, for the making a difference for the better.
Uh-huh.
I've been blessed with opportunities
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
wouldn't believe. You know, I would have never thought I'd be on a college campus talking to a class of
Mm-hmm.
students about my hip hop background and experience and different
Uh-huh.
ways of using hip hop. I would have never expected. I might have thought I'd be performing and rapping,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, never actually being hired as a speaker to come down
Yeah.
and deliver
Yeah.
messages or working with kids in the classroom,
Yeah.
songwriting exercise and stuff. So, and I feel like because of that, it's important for me to also break bread and give back and do
Mm-hmm.
things that benefit other folks that are out here trying to make it, doing positive and progressive work. You know,
Mm-hmm.
whenever
Mm-hmm.
I find opportunities like that, you know,
Yes.
things like that, be it a
Uh-huh.
community day festival, you know,
Yeah.
working with
Yeah.
kids on STEM and you know science,
Uh-huh.
technology, engineering, and math,
Yes.
and ways to integrate hip hop as a tool to help people remember and learn and be excited about something.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching you know computer education classes or something, you know what I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
meaningful
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
people, that's going to help somebody else besides yourself. It's always
Uh-huh.
super
Uh-huh.
important. Always
Great. Great.
dope to be able to do that.
Thanks a lot. And I just want to send some shout out there to Mbonisi Zikali, Ziko, Tommy. Thank you so much for the support and watching and supporting. He's a big fan of yours. Hilary Mtaki, I see you. Who else is there? Simbawara. Thank you so much, guys, for support. Dobson Wimbai, I also see you there. And Gordon Shooks, you guys are awesome. And before we close the interview, I wanted to touch a bit on the future. What's next from Dumi? What can we be expecting from you? What are you currently working on?
Yes, yeah. So I'll highlight some of the stuff that's out, some of the stuff we're promoting, and some of the stuff that's
Mm-hmm.
coming. This has been a really good year, like I said, with the South by Southwest and Pitch and
Yeah, yeah.
Flow. Beginning of the year, you mentioned it, like rocking the John F.
Uh-huh.
Kennedy Center for Performing Arts
Yeah, yeah.
with what I've dubbed the Global Hip Hop Excursion. So it's a show where not only rock with a DJ, bring hip
Yeah.
hop elements, but we have musicians, we have African djembe players, dancers, and
Uh-huh.
different stuff that were incorporated. That's the title Global Hip Hop Excursion.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, if people are on or checking it, I'm DUMI right on everything. Do me
Yes,
right.
I was about to ask that. How can people connect with you? Yeah,
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter,
it's Dumi Right.
SoundCloud. It's all DUMI RIGHT. So definitely
Uh-huh.
look up to see what's up and coming. So I have an album out called "Doing It the Right Way," and
Yes.
was basically, you know, a play on the name right, doing it the do
Mm-hmm.
me right way, but
Oh,
also
okay.
just kind of encompassing everything I said, right? Like, what's the right way? At least for me,
Mm-hmm.
the right way is talking about progressive subjects and things that uplift people
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
promote, you know, elevation through hip hop. And the album cover is crazy because it's got like African drums, and then it's
Uh-huh.
got
Uh-huh.
speakers. It's got a
Yeah.
shield and spear with the
Mm-hmm.
microphone. So
Uh-huh.
it's like blending those elements together that we talk
Uh-huh.
about or I've been talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
so that project is out and I'm pushing that. It's really cool because I was blessed to have Mike G from the Jungle Brothers, Native Tongue
Uh-huh.
Family, who we've
Dog.
been rocking from
Yeah.
back in the day on it. YZ, who's like a really super dope MC and a businessman. He like opened like an early hip hop record store, its own management company, and he does so
Yeah.
many different initiatives. But getting to rock with folks like that on the album,
Uh-huh.
as well as you know, just some really dope producers. So that album's out on all streaming platforms and digital services to access. And then I'm in the process of working on new music as we go. Like as a creative artist, you kind of have to keep recording songs just so you don't fall asleep, even if you have stuff that's out. One, it keeps you fresh and excited, but it also keeps your tools sharp, right? You don't exercise, kind of get weak. So
Yeah, true,
um,
true, true.
working on stuff. So that's some real interesting stuff that'll be coming out. I'll probably have a vinyl single that'll be dropping before the
Okay.
year's end with the label out in Canada. A single I've actually been working to put out for a while, and
Yeah.
it's coming to fruition. And so we're gonna get that out there, and then more unique and interesting hip hop type performance events.
Yeah.
So rocking at non-traditional spaces. So we always rock in the clubs, in all those places and on stages and at festivals. But also bringing it
Yes.
to like I did a show 2 weeks ago in a library. I was saying
Oh, nice.
we're going to do those kinds of things, and then also working with young people, youth, and doing performances and workshops, and just continuing to bring our message. I have a show in New York City for all the people in the U.S. at Brooklyn Academy of Music coming up here
Yeah.
shortly. It's a family concert, and it's funny. The concert's titled "Get Up, Stand Up," which is like one of my taglines in all of my
Okay.
shows. When I say
Cool.
stand up, y'all say get up.
Get
But
up.
stand up,
Yeah.
and obviously the Bob Marley influence,
Yes. Get up. Stand
freedom
up for your
songs.
rights. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, freedom songs. That's why I have a song on my album called Liberation Music. I feel like that's what we need. We heard enough gangster talk, We need some
True. True.
liberation
True. We
music.
need some liberation
Talking
music.
about
Yeah.
free emancipation and freedom and self determination. We need
Yeah.
more of that.
Great.
Less
Great.
of the other stuff.
And Zimbabwean, before we end, do you have 1, 2, 3 hip hop heads from Zimbabwe that you've been tagging and keeping an eye on, that you would say these guys are somehow representing something that you admire?
It's interesting. I always say that, and then I go back and I'm like, oh man, I forgot so and so, forgot so and so. But I'll shout out my homie Psychotectonic. He
He's the
was like
illest, man.
super, super nice lyricist. He's like, and I hope they don't mind me with the comparison. I'm not trying to say that the copycats of. He's like the Zimbabwean Jeru the Damager, just because he's got like ill metaphors and and puns and punchlines, but he's also super conscious on what he's talking about in terms of like how the system and people impact him.
Yeah, yeah.
So me and him actually have an unreleased joint. As soon as he
Ah,
pops
nice.
back up and hollers, we'll throw that joint out there. So he's definitely one, and a dude that I still think like is one of the illest ever in my mind, like
Yeah.
outspoken.
Outspoken. Yeah.
Man, that dude, like stuff, and he does a lot of spoken word. He rocks with the band,
Yeah,
but when
yeah.
we got on the track, like, yo, it's funny. Like we have a song called "Are You Ready for This?" And the
Yeah.
funny thing about it is, people should look this up online. Dumi RIGHT and Outspoken. Are you ready for this? The
Oh, okay.
video
I'm
was
gonna check it
shot in
out.
Harare in Washington D.C.
Ah,
But the
interesting.
funny thing is, I sent him the chorus, and I was like, "Somebody, oh you buddy, are you ready for this? We got beats and rhymes that's designed to uplift. It's a paradigm shift, not the same old skit. Put your hands in the air and just pump your fist." And then I changed my mind because I was like, "Well, actually, let's do a different type of spoken hook." But he never got my second message, so he did the first
Yes.
hook. And when I heard it, I was like, "Oh, actually, I'm
Okay,
glad
cool.
we didn't change it. It was the best. It was the
Ah,
illest."
nice. Great, great. Yeah, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time, and I feel
Oh
that
yeah,
we've
shout
just
out to
done
Awa.
part.
Shout out to Awa Kiwa. She's killing it too.
Hour is
Her
awesome
stuff
with the
is
show.
her
Yeah, with the
stuff
show
and
with
her stuff
her.
is
She's
unorthodox.
awesome.
Like
She's
there's nobody
she's
like her.
yeah, she's I think for me, she's uncontainable. She's too much. Yeah, she's good. And I think we need to do another follow-up interview. But it is still my hope that 2020 we should be able to get you down to Harare and Bulawayo and some other parts of Zimbabwe and do something hip hop wise. definitely gonna make it top priority. It's still one of my biggest wishes, because I feel the wealth of knowledge that we have and experience is something that can actually impact and change a whole generation.
Yeah,
And
nah, it's big. That's
yeah,
man,
true.
that would be awesome.
Thanks, man. And before you go, I know we have to switch over to UK for another guest, but for just 30 seconds, I think doing damage is one of the best songs that I've heard from you and your brother. And if you don't mind, a 30-second snippet into that song, you know.
Um, so part of that, it actually, and as I was saying, you can't really engineer it. The reason I had a lyric in one song when we were working. Like I said, when we got here, we had to work a lot to be like, okay, let's make some songs. Let's let them hear
Yeah.
it. Are they gonna like it? Is this stuff that they want to put together? And one of the
Yeah.
lines was, I could even do damage in my own language, but if I did, maybe you wouldn't understand it. But since I'm an innovator and creator, I'll act as both MC and translator. And they were like,
Oh.
oh, can you actually do that? They're like, that should be a song. That's just the lyric. That should be a whole song. And I was like, maybe we could do that.
Oh, that's how
But it's
the
funny.
song came about.
That's how the song, it was a lyric in another song. And it was like,
Wow.
you guys should actually do a song like that. And so, okay, back to the lab. But that's what people don't realize too. They think that when you come out, it's just like, here are
Yeah.
10 songs. Okay, I've got an album, release it. There's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
work, rework, evaluation to figure out, like,
Uh-huh.
is this stuff viable? Does somebody
Yeah.
want to do something with it? You know, it might
Uh-huh.
be good, you might like it, but does
Yeah. Yeah.
the people who are gonna provide the budgets or whatever put it
Yeah.
out, at least at that time, does the label have an interest in it? So you
Uh-huh.
gotta do what they call cut demos. You know,
Uh-huh.
they review the demos and decide and be like, oh no, we should change this, or
Uh-huh.
you know, we
Uh-huh.
should do this and do that, you know, for better or for worse. So yeah, that's
Ah,
kind of
great.
how that came about, man. That's how
Ah,
that came
cool.
about.
Yeah. So maybe as you sign out, just maybe from any track, doing damage or the other one. It's
All right, yeah, I'm gonna kick this because
yeah.
this is
Okay.
like one of
Cool.
my favorites. It is a perfect way to summation.
Okay. Cool, man.
The name is Dumi RIGHT. You know I am the one first brother from the mother that did damage in my native tongue. Circa 91, that's when it begun. Still doing this here as long as I'm having fun. Growing up in Zim, we were poised to make noise, but on the radio, all of them Tukudzi and the Bundu Boys. So we had to find alternative dreams because we was brothers with alternative scenes on the scene. Raising hell paid in full, the bigger and deafer. Heard about Funk and Klein, and I wrote the man a letter. The rest is historical. Consult with the oracle. They ask, can I kick it? That question is rhetorical. We shall overcome someday, of that I'm confident, especially if we can come together as a continent. All over the map, it's like a panacea. Got people with me from Zimbabwe to DC to Tanzania. Zimbabwe ilizwe engivela khona hiko loko uyawuzomona ngithe uyawuzofunda but wena uyala sakaliyacha zwana phela afuna kuthula ngoba mnandi angithi uyavuma. Yeah, man. The
Yeah.
soul
Thank you
parent, they
so
want us to
much.
turn back, never that, sever that. We only go straight ahead, never back. Can't provide no slack because then that would lead to regression. They say the road to hell is often paved with good intentions. Study your opponent, pay attention to how they attack. How should we react? Gotta stay united, keep intact. So we'll leave it there, man. Just had to
Thank you
get
so
real
much,
quick on
man.
something.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much from deep down. I really appreciate. This was one of the best interviews that I've had. I don't really think it was an interview, but it was um, a real experience, and I learned so much from this conversation. And I hope the listeners and the viewers also learned something, and those that will watch it afterwards will also gain something out of it. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Nah, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad we talked about a lot of stuff. Probably a lot of
Mhm,
stuff I haven't talked about in interviews in
mhm.
a while. So it'd be good for
Great.
people to get that behind the scenes. And like you said, let's do it again, man.
Yeah,
Shout out
definitely.
to
Let's do
you.
another.
Keep up the great work, and
Mhm,
our paths will connect soon enough.
definitely. And shout out to Naboth Rizla. I remember he's the first guy when I talked about this song, and then he tagged you on that. It just clicked my mind now that he was the main plug. So thanks a lot to Naboth
Oh,
Rizla for
awesome,
the
awesome.
connection.
Looks
Yeah.
like Ndosa Husa joined the live stream right here. So
Oh, into
those
success.
brothers are
Nice,
super.
nice.
They are super talented, man.
They are, they are.
Stuff
They
they do
worked
is
with
amazing.
one of the artists that I'm working with from Blawa. His name is Wabarati, and they did a collaboration with him. They are awesome. They're too good.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
gotta
yeah,
let more
thank you
people
so
hear it.
much. Yeah, cool, cool. So I think for today that was it, but definitely we should find a day and do another one. But in the meantime, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
You're
Peace,
welcome.
and we will
Peace.
stay
Bless.
strong. All
Okay,
right,
great. Bye.
out.
Sure.
Brothers and the brothers from the mother. It goes down like this. Yes, sir.
So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to EarGround New Voices Amplified. Today was a hip hop experience, such a wonderful hip hop experience. As I was speaking to Dumi Right, who's the other half of the Zimbabwean hip hop duo, Zimbabwe Legit, and forgive me, I still have a bit of a cough, but they are the first African hip hop or rap group to truly reach an international audience and internationally acclaimed group there. And thank you so much, Dumi, for the interview. Until next time. Now we're crossing over to Boaz. I'm sorry about that. We're crossing over to UK. Boaz, my other colleague, is having an interview with Jen Doka. They're going to be talking gospel music, and tune in to the broadcast. You can check the link on the EarGround page.